FIA's heat warning has put the spotlight on one of Formula One's most debated new regulations, with drivers divided over the optional cooling system and the 5-kilogram ballast penalty for those who choose not to use it. Formula One has arrived at the Red Bull Ring under intense scrutiny. The FIA has activated its heat hazard protocol ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix, with temperatures expected to exceed the threshold that triggers special measures for driver safety. But the biggest talking point is not only the heat itself. Under the regulations, teams are permitted to use driver cooling systems. Competitors who opt not to use the equipment will instead carry an additional 5-kilogram ballast to maintain sporting equality. The rule has already sparked debate in the paddock, with several drivers questioning whether an optional safety measure should come with a performance penalty. The FIA confirmed that temperatures are expected to exceed the 31 degrees Celsius threshold during the Austrian Grand Prix weekend, triggering the heat hazard regulations introduced after the extreme conditions seen in Qatar in 2023. Forecasts suggest temperatures could climb to around 32 degrees Celsius during Saturday's sessions and rise even further on race day. The cooling devices were originally intended to become mandatory this season, but following concerns from several drivers regarding comfort and practicality, their use remains optional in 2026. Lewis Hamilton welcomed the FIA's focus on driver welfare, but said the way the rule is structured raises an important question about fairness. "I understand why the FIA has introduced it, because the heat can be brutal," Hamilton said. "But if the system is optional, then drivers should not be punished for making a different choice. Carrying extra ballast turns a safety measure into a sporting compromise, and that is where the discussion becomes more complicated." The Ferrari driver suggested that while protecting drivers is essential, the governing body must be careful not to create a rule that effectively pressures competitors into using equipment they may not want. Max Verstappen was equally critical of the idea that drivers who decline the cooling system must carry additional weight. "If it's there for safety, fine, but it should remain a choice," Verstappen explained. "The moment you add 5 kilograms for not using it, you're no longer just offering an option, you're influencing the race." The four-time world champion argued that the ballast requirement changes the nature of the regulation, turning what should be a personal decision into a strategic disadvantage. Verstappen added that if the FIA wants the system to be accepted by the field, it must avoid creating the impression that drivers are being forced into compliance through performance penalties. Championship leader Kimi Antonelli adopted a more measured stance, acknowledging both the benefits and the drawbacks of the system. "In extreme heat, the system can definitely help, but the ballast changes the equation," Antonelli said. "Drivers will have to decide whether the comfort and safety benefits are worth the extra weight, and that is not a simple call." The Mercedes driver suggested that the rule may be workable in principle, but only if teams and drivers are convinced that the cooling equipment is reliable enough to justify the compromise. Away from the heat concerns, the Monaco Grand Prix controversy continues to cast a shadow over Formula One. Pierre Gasly's podium was reinstated after Alpine successfully challenged the pit lane speeding penalties following evidence that the timing system had incorrectly measured the pit lane length. Oscar Piastri, who lost out as a result of the revised classification, criticised the situation, saying, "It's quite the predicament they've got themselves into. I don't know how you get yourself out of that one." The Australian added, "Perplexed is the word I would use." Red Bull and McLaren have since filed appeals against the decision, while Mercedes initially considered pursuing its own review before ultimately withdrawing its request. The Monaco saga is expected to remain one of the dominant talking points throughout the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Gasly, Isaac Hadjar and Piastri are all scheduled to face the media on Thursday, while George Russell and several team principals will also address reporters regarding the ongoing dispute. With extreme temperatures, renewed scrutiny of FIA procedures and another crucial championship battle looming, Formula One heads into Austria facing one of its most intriguing and potentially contentious weekends of the season.